I am here with the Senior Savers.
That's us.
That's Brian DeVore, James Shapiro. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
having us.
having us.
You are the Senior Savers.
Trying to be.
Hosts of the Senior Savers television show, which has been in production now for most of the year.
Yeah.
And episode 1 teaser is ready to go. Episode 1 is almost finished. I know you guys have been working really hard shooting a bunch of stuff to try to get that first episode wrapped up. But before we play that teaser, which, by the way, you guys found the cutest couple I've ever seen.
That's on her.
In my life.
I don't say that's on me.
No,
I say there's a higher power involved in that one.
Right.
Agreed on that. But so before we get to that, tell us a little bit about what is a senior saver?
So senior savers, in my opinion, are people who they want to help seniors. The aging population is aging even faster. 10,000 people a day are turning 65. And I read a statistic yesterday that said by the year 2050, about 20% of the population in San Diego is going to be a senior. And seniors face issues. A lot of seniors are alone. They don't have anyone to help them, take care of them, watch over them. And so what we sort of look at our job is to provide information for seniors and their families to help make decisions about their lives, whether they're going to stay at home, whether they're going to maybe move into a senior community, and educate them on what senior communities are about, what services are available for them, et cetera.
Well, and I think also what's really important to talk about is that we are aging and no one's talking about the fact that we're aging. So it's like we're going to put our heads in the sand and we're going to deny it. And what's happening is that the seniors, as they age, really do need help, but we're not talking about it. So they don't know the resources are available. They're afraid to say they need help. So we feel like, putting this show out there is an opportunity to sort of open the door to conversation so people can see, oh, this is my story. And they can relate to it and
Normalize
maybe
something that has been maybe doesn't
that
feel
we
normal.
stigmatize here.
Yeah.
One of the statistics that I love that when we talk, when we go and talk for talks, I don't know, go for talks, is that only 10% of people even have a conversation with their spouse about their advance directive. So that's what's happening in our society. I mean, we're aging, and sadly we're dying. And he doesn't even like me to mention that when we talk, but it is. And so let's embrace aging. Let's make the most of it, and let's stop burying our heads in the sand.
We have an interesting cultural phenomenon here in America where we really shun death. And just the idea, the concept, it's almost as if, well, if you don't say it, maybe it won't happen to you.
Right.
And so. In other cultures, I just got back from my honeymoon in Fiji, and we visited multiple villages there. And they live about like they did probably 1,000 years ago. Very little's changed. In fact, a lot of the villages don't even have electricity still.
Wow.
And some of them just got it in the past few years. So there, everyone lives together, and the senior. There's no such thing as a senior. It's just that's grandma, great grandma, and whatever. Everyone still lives together. There's no place for them to go. There's no independence really. Everyone's very much dependent upon one another. Here, because we've created such an independent society, we have this thing where everyone is seeking independence. And so your kids will seek independence. Brian, you have 2 young men who are going to, at one point, go away.
Right.
Right?
Hopefully.
They're going to go away one of these days.
Okay.
And although that sounds great right now, because they're teenagers,
Right.
then it'll just be you.
Yeah.
And when you become 80 years old, when you're 50, there's nothing wrong with that. That's like, oh, that's great. Yes, finally, they're gone. But when you're 80, it's a different story.
Yeah.
Now you need help with stuff. They have their own families. They're bringing up their own kids. And it's that spot right there that is a new phenomenon which has been stigmatized because it didn't exist 100 years ago. People didn't live this long.
Right.
Right.
So, people were dying long before they got this. It was a total anomaly if someone lived to be 85 years old.
Right.
Now it's the average age, 85 and 87 for men and women.
I just met someone at the community where we shot the show who's 102 years old. And she's walking faster than me. She's in great shape. She still needs assistance in some ways, So, yeah, that's exactly
One of
what's
my
happening.
wife's favorite patients, she's in physical therapy, is 105 years old.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to Esther out there. And so, I think what you guys are doing and what I think is really cool about this is you are normalizing something that has been stigmatized. You're saying, hey, listen, it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay. We realize that you're in too big of a home. You need to go somewhere where you can have fun again, where you can be around people again, where you can make friends again, where you can have a life that you really look forward to, as opposed to just being out here on an island,
Right.
waiting, hoping that someone will call you this week.
Right. Isolated.
One of
Yeah.
the things that we're also trying to do, to your point, is to show people what senior community living really is. Because again, there's this perception, and I don't know. My great grandmother was in a community. They didn't even call it community; it was like a facility, right?
Right.
Or a convalescent
Home,
home,
right.
right?
A home, yeah.
And I remember visiting her. I was 8 years old, 9 years old. I remember, and now I go into senior communities, and I'm not kidding when I say sign me up. I mean, it really is, it's fun, and there's great food, and there's great activities, and the couple that we just helped move in really embraced it, and they were really proactive about it, and you'll hear about the story when we meet them on the show, but they realized that their life, he wasn't driving anymore, and
Don't
she
give
was
away too
sorry.
much.
Okay, anyway, so they made the decision proactively and embraced it, but what we recognize is that that's about 20% of the people, but the other 80% of the people are staying in their homes, and we're not talking about it, and then something happens. There's a fall or something happens, and then they're looking at all of the decisions that need to be made of how they're going to be okay and be safe when their adult children are sandwiched and dealing with their own families and working. And so, I mean, we need to address. It's going to be a huge phenomenon, and I think this is just like a little bit of a chip of the iceberg.
This is the first domino. That's the hope,
Right,
right?
right,
The first domino that opens up the conversation and normalizes the conversation, so that our grandfathers and grandmothers and great grandfathers and great grandmothers can live a life that they're happy with. That's really what it's about, right?
Whether they decide to move into a community or whether they decide to stay at home. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do it in this format as a reality show, let's face it, we like watching reality shows, right? We like watching Love It or List It. We like watching, Property Brothers.
Win This Listing.
Win This Listing is a great
Other great
show.
reality
exactly.
shows that are out there, yeah.
Yeah, I love that show as well. And so people want to watch it. So I want a senior to watch this show on television and say, oh, I didn't know that was available for me. I didn't know there was something called, I'll give a plug real quick, to Elder Help, an organization that can send a volunteer out and help me with my groceries and help me with paying bills and things like that. I want the adult children to watch it and say, oh, that's what senior living is like. It's not like what I used to think it was. I'm cool with mom and dad living there. So I think the format that we have it in, I think is the right format to begin that conversation.
Well, speaking of the format, let's go ahead and play the teaser for episode 1. Now, you guys are the senior savers. You're saving seniors. You're doing all these great things, and we're making a television show about them.
Right.
And it's a reality show, as you mentioned. So, Jade, I'm going to push the button. My screen is black right now. Do I need to be muted, or do I need to keep the audio on?
Keep it on. Flip it on real quick for me too. Just click a button. It's not going on my screen yet.
Not going on up there.
Wait, give it a sec. There it is. Okay, yeah, you're good.
I'm good.
All right.
All right, here we go. And the teaser for episode 1 of Senior Savers.
Joe and Sima Oppenheimer are about to make
Turn up a little.
life-changing transition.
I'm Brian.
And Jamie,
All the way.
We're the hosts of Senior Savers.
they are leaving a home of 14 years and moving into a senior community.
They are feeling overwhelmed by the whole process, and you will join us as we turn their seemingly difficult, life-changing transition into an incredible adventure.
We're going to show all of the pieces that go into making the transition happen, and they won't have to touch a single box.
Absolutely. We'll help them with the sale of their home. We're going to help them every step of the way. Plus, along the way, you'll learn much more about what senior community living is truly all about, as well as some of the amazing services available for seniors and their families.
Yeah, they're going to walk in, and we're going to see the big reveal. It's absolutely the best part of the whole experience of our work, but also the show. It's going to be amazing, and I bet you'll cry.
You won't want to miss a single moment of this groundbreaking journey.
Amazing. Just amazing.
Thanks.
So cool.
Joe and Sima were amazing to work with too. I mean, they wanted to be on TV. He used to have his own television show, and they embraced what this meant, I think, for other people behind them.
That's really, because you need someone to
Right.
be willing to allow you to do that, to
That
show
was
the whole story.
significant because seniors are so private also. They're so concerned with security, and so that's why I said it was a higher power that we happened to find somebody who had hosted a TV show and was willing to go on camera with it. But I also want to give a shout out to my team, Silver Linings Transitions, because we are a senior move management company, and when seniors are making that transition, it's overwhelming for them, and sometimes their families can handle it and sometimes they can't, and sometimes there's fighting. So we go in and we basically, they don't have to touch a single box, and we help them downsize and go through their belongings, and then we get them completely set up in their new home. And I have an amazing crew. You saw them in their mango aprons, and I would feel bad if I didn't acknowledge them because they made the whole thing really happen, to kind of like the third host.
Yeah, exactly. And the sale of the home as well, was part of it too. And that knock on wood went very smoothly as well. More of that will be in the show too.
Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
A lot.
And that's what the senior savers do, is manage those moving parts, which is super cool. And I think most people don't realize that there are people like you guys who are there to help in situations like that, to be a resource for questions or ideas or solutions when there are things that come up. I do want to also give a quick shout out to the executive producer who pretty much single-handedly put this show together,
She's amazing.
Angela Wong.
She's amazing.
Who is tremendous. And also Rebecca Peters on sound, who was there for almost all those remote shoots. They definitely deserve a golf clap, I would say, for
And
the
then
work
some.
that they put into that. So this is one of those things where I think you are on, this could be that first domino of a movement that opens a conversation up, because one of the things that we do know about seniors today, for example, this couple, they were an anomaly, right? They were very open to this idea. They were willing to be the first ones there. They knew it was something that needed to happen. They jumped in. A lot of people in their same age range are more private. They don't want the limelight. But the next generation's coming, a little different, right? As times have changed. So a little bit different. Maybe we'll start to open that conversation up now for this generation, before it becomes more natural for later generations who are brought up, or who, not brought up, but who existed earlier in the internet age and things like that. Like, for example, I just look at my grandparents, for example, never had a computer at their house. Never had one. Not one. Not the Apple IIe, nothing.
Yeah, okay.
But my dad, who is their second oldest child and is now 67, I think, years old. Yeah, 67 years old. He embraces the heck out of technology. I mean, he's on Instagram, Facebook. He's had a Garmin since they came out. So there's that one little layer of generational gap, and that's the generation that needs the most help.
Right.
Because they feel like they're a burden. They don't want to burden anyone.
Well, and especially when you have like a widow, for example. When the husband passes away, and typically the man passes away first, just by how old women.
Because we take care of ourselves.
That's not what I was going to say, but okay. And so what happens is, and I just heard the story yesterday. I was meeting with a healthcare provider, and she said, what happens is, with her grandmother, for example, and this is not everybody, didn't know how to pay a bill. She could write a check, but she couldn't look at a bill and say, I have to write a check for that amount to that company. So what are they going to do? What help is there for them? So what do? They just stay there. One of the reasons why I came up with the idea for the show was because two of the seniors that we helped last year in the work that we do passed away within the first month of moving into the senior community. And the reason why they passed away was because no one was around to watch after them, no family around, really no friends around, and so they essentially they existed in their homes, but they weren't living in their homes.
Malnourished. I mean, one of the clients was barely eating. She was living on Boost shakes when she could get to the kitchen, and the other one was on dialysis and still trying to climb stairs and living by himself because his wife had gone into skilled nursing. And the interesting thing about them was they both had not only put deposits down, but they were paying for a room in the community, but they would not go. They just didn't want to go, and they didn't go until there was really no other choice.
And a lot of times seniors, they want to hold on to their home, its memories, and we get that, but also they want their independence. But are they really independent? If they're not driving or not driving well, no one's there with them, they lose their purpose. The number one thing that helps a senior thrive is having purpose. Exercise is number 7.
Well, and socialization too
Right.
is really important. So if you're isolated because you're having a hard time getting out of the house, and you may have a caregiver coming in, you may have a family member, or you may be sitting alone a lot of the day, you're not, living. And that was one of the things that I liked about Sima's interview is she said, I feel like now I'm going to have freedom. Now I don't have to worry about, cooking. I can if I want to, but I don't have to. I can pick up photography, and I can, do these things that I would enjoy doing. So, but another, to your point, there were 2. So as a senior move management company, we did a lot of moves last year, but we did 4 together where he sold the house and then we did the move. 2 of them fought it. 2 of them embraced it. One of them was on the waiting list for her community, so we could be really proactive about it. The other one, when we met with him, is wearing his name tag for the new community, kept going over there for meals. They're thriving. They love it.
Right.
So,
And along the way of creating the show, at first it was going to be about what we do. But as I was uncovering more and more resources available for seniors, all the nonprofits that are available, and we're going to have commercials on the show for them. Not just nonprofits, but I'll just mention one, San Diego Oasis. And they've been around for 23 years, and they do classes and so forth for seniors. And they do amazing work. I never heard of them. Most people don't know they exist. In fact, we were at a senior center last week, and we were doing a talk. The talks we do is, do you own your stuff, or does your stuff own you? It's to start the conversation of, is your stuff taking over your life? Because that's usually the first step of things not going the right direction. And I asked, who here has heard of this nonprofit? Half the people raised their hands. Everyone should be able to raise their hand and say, I know these things. So I wanted to provide the information about these services, whether they do want to move into community or whether they want to stay at home. Either way, seniors should be okay.
Yeah, they should at least be able to have a conversation.
right. And their children should feel okay. I mean, that's the part of it too, is that there's this guilt feeling of, I can't take care of my parent. I can't be with my children, my job, and my parent. And I think, showing adults, children what's available, whether it's a senior community or the resources that can come in, because it's a lot. It's a lot for all of us. So we need to, it's a village, right?
Yeah, need to team up. That's for sure. And that's where the Senior Savers come in. Check it out. It's coming up in June, right? The first episode will be in June. So like the Senior Savers page on Facebook.
Yes,
we will
please.
tag it in this post for updates on exact airing times, maybe even a giveaway, potentially tickets to the premiere.
Could be.
Could maybe a ticket. Yeah,
The
maybe.
premiere, the premiere is going to be on May 29th. We're not ironing out the details, so be sure to like the page so we can get the details out.
Okay, let's get to a quick question here from Ginny. She says, my mom is in her 70s and is deciding what she should do, stay in her home or move to a senior community. What's your first step be?
That's a great question. So there are people who can come in and evaluate and really get a good sense for what's important to your mom. Where do I look? There? Or to you? What's important to your mom? They look at the financial picture. There are people who actually specialize in placement, and there are people who can evaluate her and how well she's living, and they look at 3 points. I think they look at nutrition, they look at socialization, and it's a whole well-being picture. So if you want to follow up with us, we can point you to the right resources. So.
Yeah. The question I think is, Jenny, is she happy? And is there something that's lacking for her? And if there is, how do you solve for that?
Right.
Right. And actually, that's one of the shows that we want to do. We want to show somebody who's sort of trying to decide what's the right decision. Sort of like, was it list or
Love it or list it.
Love it or list it. So but yeah, I mean, we need to examine those the options. And obviously, we're all very different. So what works for me isn't going to work for you. But knowing that there are options available, I think it's definitely going to put her mind at ease, and knowing that there are resources.
And we're definitely looking at doing more episodes than just the first one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what you can do with something like that, Jenny, is really take a look at, well, what are the options, and at least explore them. Because your mom doesn't have to do anything; she can stay right where she's at. But if she starts to become at least educated about, oh, well, here's something that I could do. Maybe not now, maybe 5 years from now,
Yep.
or whenever the time is right. There's that. There's this. There's this. There's these people who can help me over here. When it starts to become difficult, we've all seen something like that, whether it's in a grocery store or at the dry cleaners or something where you see someone who comes in that's a senior and maybe looks like they could use some help.
Yep.
Like this looks like this is a really big task for them. I see people a lot of times shopping that way.
Yeah.
Or I'll see them, I go, man, this is a very hard thing, I can tell, for this person to do.
Right.
They're really not able to do this very quickly. It's going to take them a lot of time. They probably could use some help. If they have to buy anything that's over 5 pounds,
Right.
it's going to be a real struggle for them. Let's get to it before that happens.
Right.
Let's
Exactly.
know what the resources and options are before we get that far down the road.
Yep.
And so I think it makes sense to explore, Jenny, at least ask some questions and find out what's possible,
Yeah,
so
for
that
sure.
you can make the right decision when the time is right.
Absolutely.
Never too early to get educated.
No, the earlier in the process, I always say, no matter what, the earlier in the process you start, you don't have to wait for that emergency situation, that happens. That unfortunately most of the cases is mom just fell, dad just broke his leg, and now we have to make decisions to make. We have decisions to make, and we got to do it fast. And what resources are out there? And unfortunately, a lot of times, if you're in that situation, you go for the first resource you find, and maybe not the best resource you find. And you really need to have someone on your side to kind of guide you through the process.
Tremendous stuff, guys. Great work you're doing in the community.
Thank you.
And really looking
Thanks.
forward to seeing the first episode.
Us too.
So make sure you like out. Make sure you like the Senior Savers page, which will be tagged above and below in this feed for more details. Coming up, and the first episode will be airing in June. Continue to watch Smarter San Diego here, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. Stick around.